Welcome back to Gaelic Games Fan TV. It's the hurling catch-up show. We're going to be looking back at all the weekend's hurling championship action, and we will be touching on the 4 Tailteann Cup games that took place at the weekend as well. Joined by Matthew Hurley from the Gaelic Statsman podcast. Matthew, how's the form? Cork are Munster champions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thanks for having me on again, Aaron. And it's been a positive season so far. A league and a Munster double. Hopefully, we'll make it a treble at the end of July. But look, the game on Saturday night was brilliant. I would say probably brilliant in terms of entertainment, but in terms of quality, not so much. And that's on both sides, Cork and Limerick. Like, I think it was 17 points for Cork, 15 points for Limerick. I'm sure we'll get into it, but it probably wasn't the best quality. But you look at the spectacle, the fact it was a full house. I think Limerick and Cork is probably, I think Dan Casey, our good friend, mentioned it earlier as well on TikTok, that this is developing, if it hasn't already, into one of the greatest rivalries in recent history in Gaelic games. It's tough, it's physical, obviously, and you can see the clips on social media as well. It's all ramping up now for Limerick and Cork final. Obviously, Cork probably have to play Tipper Galway in the semi-final. On the other side, then Limerick against Kilkenny or Dublin. We'll see what happens in that kind of scenario. But yeah, it should be very, very interesting to see the rest of the All-Irelands. The Munster final wasn't the best quality, but entertainment-wise, brilliant. The Leinster final didn't kick in until about 60 minutes in, unfortunately. Just a few things. Number one, like the dead atmosphere in Croke Park. You can see the seagulls going around the place, which isn't a good sign. And number two, Galway, puzzling, I would say, tactics up until 60 minutes when they actually threw off the shackles and went at Kilkenny. And then the Joe McDonagh, I suppose, we talked about Cork winning the Munster Championship, and it's a brilliant story. It said, but I think the story of the week, it has to be Kildare. What a story it is. 5 games in a row they've won now. They won their first ever Joe McDonagh Cup game, not trophy game, this season against Westmeath, and to go on and win the competition, it's absolutely remarkable. Brian Dowling's done an incredible job there, and obviously he's coming up against your good old selves next week in Newbridge. Newbridge are nowhere there, but yeah, Kildare hurling, he's on the rise, and ultimately that is a good thing for hurling. But the more counties we have, as Jarlath Burns said in at the end of the game as well, the better it is for the game, because you need to grow the likes of Kildare, the likes of, well, fortunately Kerry went down to the Christie Ring after some good attempts at the Joe McDonagh. Down beat Kildare, remember, the Division 2 final in the Alliance League this year. So like, Down have a potential to go up higher as well. You have other counties. Westmeath have potentially good players. Carlow were so close to the final as well. It's great to see those counties, and hopefully the Leinster Championship will increase in numbers in the next few years to allow the likes of Kildare, the likes of Down, if they do come into the competition in Leinster, the likes of Westmeath, the likes of Laois and Carlow, to flourish and not just stay at the lower tier all the time. Because if you're at a higher tier, you will start building confidence, and Kildare will build confidence next season playing against the big boys. But what a weekend of hurling, obviously. 2, I would say, historic enough games, very good games. The other one, the Leinster final, really lacked quality and intensity, but I'm sure we'll get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, we'll start with the Limerick and Cork game. I mean, there's no better place to start. It was Limerick 227, Cork 120, with Cork winning in the end on 130. Actually, I should say winning on penalties. An extraordinary game. I mean, where do you even start with this game? I mean, it was incredible, like from the get-go, from the start to finish. As you said, like both sides with multiple wides, and it felt like there was like a bit of nervousness at different stages, maybe from both teams. It was very tense. It was very hard hitting. There was a lot of heavy challenges, a lot of turnovers. Even going into the final couple of minutes as well, like both teams had chances to win it. They had frees to win it. A lot of uncharacteristic misses from both teams, and that was probably even emphasised in the penalties as well. I mean, seeing a penalty go wide in hurling is rare enough. To see 2 penalties go wide from a Limerick team is wide enough, or is rare enough. So, I mean, how do you even sum up and describe what was as you said, not the best Limerick and Cork game we've seen down the years, but in terms of a spectacle, in terms of entertainment, it was right up there.
Definitely was. Like, even you look at, we talk about organised chaos, really associated to the male footballers down through the years, but this was that game, like 104 shots in 90 minutes between both sides, 54 for Cork, 50 for Limerick. That is an exceptional number, no matter if it went to extra time or not. Even shots from play, 83 between the both sides in 90 minutes of hurling. And it was just, as I say, a spectacle, very, very good as well. Like the puckouts and everything was decent, but I think the main stat out of it was the frees conceded, and there was only 6 frees by half time. And you have to give, I will give it a lot of credit to Thomas Walsh here, as the RT commentators would have called him Tyler. I was confused for a while, but apparently it is his nickname, but there you go. But Thomas Walsh, he performed brilliantly, I thought, in terms of refereeing. Yes, there were a few frees that probably would have been given as fouls in recent seasons, and Brian Hayes was getting dragged back on the Limerick side, Cian Lynch was getting dragged back, and they probably would have been fouls. But you have to admire Thomas Walsh for letting the game flow as it did. He was letting the hits go in, he was letting the play flow. There was a lot of shots from play as well. Both sides missed a lot of opportunities, and that's down to the quality of both sides in many ways. I'm sure Pat Ryan and John Coyley, no matter about the celebrations or commiserations or whatever, would actually say during the week, we can't be missing that amount of chances because we need to get up to the levels that we can go up on if we are to win the All-Irelands. But on Thomas, like, he had a brilliant refereeing performance in terms of letting the game flow, in terms of letting the game be a spectacle as it was, not letting himself be the main guy in the story on the front page or whatever. He just was a man letting the game flow, and he let it flow brilliantly, in fairness to him. But you could see at half time with Pat Ryan going up to the officials and John Coyley trying to break it up then, and there was sneakily hits at the end of the first half. You could see he was setting down an example really at the start of the second half, that I'm not going to take any more crap. Like even I think Cork and Limerick player got booked. There was a few other frees given in the second half, what wouldn't have been given in the first half. There was an incident where Sean O'Donoghue threw away Aaron Gallant's hurley and got a yellow card as well, which was well spotted by the officials. And that team kind of continued in the second half. He wasn't booking fellas for just the sake of it. He was booking them because they were genuine fouls, and you have to give Thomas Walsh a lot of credit. And you could see he ran himself into the ground in extra time, putting up with a hamstring injury. That was pretty rare, in fairness, but look, like, you have to credit him in all the madness, and a very good performance by him. In terms of the players on the pitch, Kieran Joyce, I thought, and Dan mentioned this as well on TikTok earlier, absolutely superb. To keep Cian Lynch not just scoreless from play, not just scoreless overall, but to keep him shotless in 90 minutes, that's outstanding. Kieran Joyce got man of the match against Waterford. I said in football a few weeks ago that Ryan McQuillan right now for Armagh is a nailed-on starter for an all-star right now. Kieran Joyce is definitely one for hurling, because the last few games when Cork have been under pressure, this guy has really, really stood up, especially with Rob Downey being out for injury. He's been absolutely superb. Shane Barrett really showed what he was meant to be made of in the first half. He had a sticky start of the season, obviously getting sent off against Clare, but he was absolutely brilliant on Saturday, scoring 1-3 for play. Dermot Healy, hard to realise this, but it was his first championship start in a Munster championship final, and he gets 3 points from play. Like, the young man did absolutely brilliantly, and he has been on form for Emo Kelly and Liz Schooley's club down in Cork, and he deserved his chance, and he got it, and that was a brilliant performance by him. Darragh Fitzgibbon really led from the front, and Darragh would probably admit himself it's probably not been his best season in a Cork jersey, but he definitely stood up on Saturday. He was absolutely superb around the middle third of the pitch. Hoggy had his touchy moments in fairness, but he still got 3 points for play. For Hoggy's age, like, that's pretty good in a Munster final. Shane Kingston coming onto the pitch. We talked about Shane Kingston for a long time now as being the super sub, and probably Shane doesn't like that tag, but like, you look at it again, he comes off the bench and scores 3 points. Conor Lehan comes off the bench and scores 2. And a lot of questions have been made about Cork's bench, but they definitely shut up the doubters in this game, in this particular one. Even Tim McCallan didn't really get points in his whole career, and then gets a point from cornerback. What a showing for him to get one, and he performed particularly well, I thought, in normal time. As for the Limerick side, Aaron Gallant's had a few touchy moments, still 2 points from play. Shane O'Brien, I'm actually surprised Shane O'Brien didn't start for Limerick. I know Ian O'Connor did well at stages. The goal he got was a bit soft, I would say, on the variety. Pat Collins probably should have done a lot better in terms of the shot stopping there. But O'Brien definitely offered something when he came on. 3 shots a goal, three attempts taken, 1-2 from play. Like I've shown his stats on my page as well for the whole season, and he's definitely up there for one of the young players of the year. It boggles belief why the guy didn't start, because he was an absolute threat when he came onto the pitch, and Cork were actually scared of him when he did come onto the pitch. Adam English again, like this guy, and I've talked about Kieran Joyce being nailed on All-Star this present moment in time. Adam English is definitely up there as well. Like, he performed brilliantly as well. Tom Morrissey, Garrett Hagerty proved their final form as well. So yeah, look, there was good performances all over the pitch, despite it not being perfection, I would say. But look, Cork won it in the end. It was a brilliant Munster final in the end, and even a lot of Limerick fans would argue that there wasn't the sufficient amount of additional time. There was only 1 minute added, but there was a few things in this. Number one, Aaron Gillan took, I think, an 8 with the free. When Damien Callahan gave it away, and Aaron Gillan poked over what was meant to be, from a Limerick point of view, the winning score. But he took an 8 over. He took about, I'd say, a minute over. So that was a minute added on. And the thing was, Darragh Fitzgibbon took a free, and if Nicky Quaid either hung onto the ball or poked it out over the sideline, he would have blown, James Owens would have blown up the final whistle. The standby referee, obviously. He would have blown up the final whistle. But because Nicky Quaid dropped the ball and it went over the end line, it's a 65, and it was fair play then. Darragh Fitzgibbon put over the point. And that took a lot of courage, I would say, to poke that over the bar from Fitzgibbon, because we've seen some players in the past the pressure kind of got to them, and Fitzgibbon just put the ball down, put it over the bar at his ease, really. And that just probably epitomises his coolness and his calmness in those sorts of situations. So he has to be given a lot of credit there. And in terms of the penalties as well, I know a lot of Limerick fans would say it's not a way to decide the game, but number one, Cork had more shots than Limerick. Number two as well, we'd more scores from play as well. We scored 124 from play, Limerick scored 219. So I would say it was a deserved draw, but if you're saying it from play and if you're in terms of number of shots, Cork edged it. I would say edged it in terms of this Munster final. But I will say this, Aaron, this isn't the last time that these two sides will bout. I think they'll bout in the All-Ireland final. But look, that's for the end of July. That's for that discussion. But in terms of entertainment, as we said before, brilliant. In terms of quality, maybe both sides can improve. But look, Cork won the day, and they won't care about the quality whatsoever.
Yeah, Dublin is great, says here. The Munster final should have been a replay. Pens in a provincial final is a disgrace. Yeah, look, I do agree. And look, I've said the same about Ulster, the Ulster final. I've been very, kind of adamant on not having penalties for finals in provincial finals. I understand that maybe for semi-finals, but I think for provincial finals, look, as far as I know, I think they are scrapping penalties in provincial finals next year. So we probably won't see this again. A Munster final being decided on penalties. But yeah, it is one of them things. Look, at the end of the day, both teams had to take the penalties. Cork could have lost, Limerick could have lost. It's unfair on whoever lost. It's just one of those. It's just one of those things, unfortunately. Acer says Parky Queeve will be hosting the quarterfinals in 2 weeks' time, and Acers also says 2014 semi-finals again. John says, as a Limerick fan, Cork wanted it more. And Peter says, Penno's in a provincial final, pure madness, player welfare, another issue too. Even the ref got injured. Yeah, that was bizarre. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, I was in a pub in Dublin at a bit of a family gathering, and they turned the TV on or in and around the same time. So I was in the Hairy Lemon pub, for anyone who doesn't know, and they were showing the rugby. I don't know what was going on, but they eventually decided to put on the hurling anyway. Someone had a word with them, and when they put it on, this was like literally the first thing we saw was the ref down with cramp. I was like, what on earth is it? Have I missed? But yeah, like that probably summed up the intensity of the game. And it was frantic. It was crazy. Like, I'd say you were probably nearly pulling your hair out of your head at times, probably watching this, because there was so many times Cork were absolutely brilliant and then would put chances wide. You think, oh, Limerick are going to come back and punish you, and then you don't. Like, absolutely frantic stuff.
It was, to be fair, and I was probably putting my hair out in terms of the chances we missed in normal time. But what I will say about extra time, I think we had 11 shots and converted 8. Limerick converted 8 out of 15. I think in extra time, I think we held our composure more than Limerick did. If Limerick were a lot more cuter in front of goal, if they didn't take wild shots, we could have been sitting here talking about the Limerick 7 in a row in Munster titles. Those are the small margins, obviously. But I thought Limerick were very, very rash in their shots in the extra time. I actually couldn't believe it, considering like the perfection that we've associated with this Limerick team down through the years. They've been absolutely brilliant, and they have been brilliant Munster champions, no doubt about it. But there was times when they were swinging at shots, and you have to give Cork a lot of credit here. They were in front of the post and they took their chances when they needed. So Shane Kingston, as I mentioned, coming onto the pitch, Conor Lehan coming onto the pitch. It was almost like the guys that were starting didn't leave the pitch. Like, these guys have been around the block for a few years now, and they definitely proved, they probably put their hands up to Pat Ryan and say, why aren't I starting? You know, they probably would have made a good point considering the performances that they put in as well. But yeah, it was frantic stuff. It really was. And the referee going down with cramp, obviously, I've probably never seen that in terms of a referee. Like, I've seen in terms of a referee getting injured. I remember Brian Gavin getting hit in the face with a hurl by Tommy Walsh of Kilkenny in 2011. Other than that, I don't actually remember off the top of my head about a referee going off injured mid-game. Actually, I think David Goff did in the football once. I don't know which game it was, but yeah,
it has happened before, I think.
Yeah, I think it probably has as well. Yeah, but to see it in a Munster final, to see it in a game of this magnitude, like, you rarely do see it. But look, Thomas hopefully does recover well, because I think he refereed the game brilliantly, personally. But yeah, look, it was a frantic enough game. Both sides will have learned a lot from this game. They probably wasn't their best. Well, it wasn't their best performance either side. Like, you look at Cork as well. I think an average of 14 wides in their last 3 games in 70 minutes. That's not really good enough. And I think Pat Ryan, while they are celebrating the Munster title, and rightly so, they were in the Glen Rovers club earlier today or last night as well. Was Jackie Taylor? Like, yeah, absolutely, he was brilliant. Tailteann. Right. I don't know what you mean, Peter, there, but yeah, there was a lot of good play on both sides, but then there was a lot of things that both sides needed to improve. As I was saying about Pat Ryan, yes, they would have celebrated the Munster title. They were the Glen Rovers club earlier today and last night as well, celebrating. But I think in the midst of the 4 weeks until the All-Ireland semi-final, I think they would have learned a lot. They would have noted down a few things as well, like the conversion of chances. Cork definitely need to improve on that. If they are to go all the way and win the Liam McCarthy Cup for the first time in 20 years, that would be the big aim out of these Cork players. So yeah, long story short, I think both sides will have learned a lot. Cork won the day. I don't think they'll care about it in any way, but look, it was just a manic game. It really was. It was full of entertainment. And yeah, I wish we could live it all over again, but we might do in July.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Liam says here, Matthew, are you sober? Yeah.
But sober yesterday, Liam, you should know.
What about the Cork players and everything else? So I mean, obviously there's that video doing the rounds of the celebrations and them kind of throwing wind in at Limerick. I mean, look, obviously when you win, you're always going to have a bit of crack, and look, it is a bit of banter. I don't think it should be taken too seriously, and I think if any Limerick fans are out, we're getting offended over. Like, I don't think it is something you should get offended over. However, what I would say though is, you know, if I was a Dublin fan, and let's say that was Kerry, and Kerry had just beaten us, obviously, you know, we're not going to ever play each other in a provincial final, but let's say Kerry beat Dublin in a big game, you know, and I've seen the Kerry players and management maybe doing that, I'd be thinking as a Dublin fan, and I know Dublin players would be saying as well, you know, like, that stuff you stick up on the wall, you bookmark, you save, you play it to yourself the next time you play them. And as we know, Limerick and Cork are probably going to play each other in an All-Ireland final. Like, let's be honest here. Like, Cork will have to be Tipperary or Galway. Look, Tipperary might cause them a bit of a problem, but Cork should win that game. Kilkenny will be the team that will beat either Dublin or Kildare. We know that, so they'll play Limerick, and you'd imagine Limerick will probably have enough. But look, we'll see what happens. I mean, that's given some amount of fuel to the Limerick lads.
It is. Firstly, I don't know who actually took the video, and secondly,
yeah, that was a big mistake as well. To be fair,
yeah. It was, yeah. Like, surely in those sorts of situations, it was fine doing I think the clip around the players singing Killa, the rendition of Killa in the dressing room afterwards, I thought was absolutely brilliant. And those clips are fine. I think that's absolutely brilliant. And it epitomises the togetherness of the team. But in terms of that clip, it probably wasn't the wisest thing to do to bring out your phone at that particular moment in time. I think genuinely that's exactly what Limerick will do. You're absolutely bang on the money there, Aaron. I think Limerick will pin that on the wall. They'll put it in a group chat or whatever, because obviously it's video footage. And they'll say, John Kiley would say, look, lads, this is what they think of us. Let's give them one old battering in July. And then the person that actually took the video will be like, oh, I made a big mistake there. No, but I think that's a lesson in general to the Cork team, I would say, or whoever took the video as well, that you should never kind of do that thing. Just don't add fuel to the fire. You won your Munster title, fair enough. It was a brilliant win of penalties, historic, all that. Winning your first Munster title in 7 years, winning your first league and Munster Championship double since 1972. It's a big achievement. Go ahead and celebrate it. Absolutely brilliant achievement. And no better place to celebrate the Glen Rovers Club. I have been there, and they do have a very nice facility there, nice pitch, brilliant bar, and of course you celebrate no matter like, absolutely celebrate it away, but just put the phone away. Simple as, and it's just a small little thing. And obviously, I don't think the person who actually took the video will obviously be outed. I don't think, because there'd be a lot of people going after him in many ways. But look, it's a lesson. It's a lesson for the Cork team to learn. It's a lesson for the fellow that actually videoed the footage. To just put the phone away at this particular moment of time. Celebrate away, that's fine. It's a brilliant achievement. But just that moment, look, put the phone away. Don't add fuel to the fire. That should be the end of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Peter says here, Cork players poking around with the young lad at the hotel was class. And Acer says here, Kilkenny will be hurting after losing last year to clear in the semi-finals, and Owen Cody will be back. Look, absolutely. To be fair, Kilkenny, Limerick semi-final, and I think I said Kilkenny will beat Dublin or Kildare. I think I meant to say Limerick will be either will be either Dublin or Kildare in the quarterfinals. Hopefully I'm wrong. I mean, it would be insane if Dublin did go and beat Limerick, but can't really see it happening. And yeah, like I think like it would be a very close game to Kilkenny and Limerick. I would fancy Limerick, but Kilkenny, as we know, can definitely turn up in those type of games. Maybe the last thing just on this game, like, I mean, I did want to touch on Limerick a little bit, just because, as we were saying, shooting wise was very poor from both teams. I was looking at your stats earlier today as well that you put up on your Instagram, and I think it was like 50% accuracy for Limerick or something like that, or 51%. I think they'd slightly worse accuracy than Cork, although it was very, very even between both teams. Limerick obviously missed 2 penalties in the shootout as well. Like, Limerick usually, like, especially in these big games, they would get over the line, they would find a way to deliver. And I remember last year in the semi-final against Cork, they let themselves down a little bit shooting-wise as well. Like, is Limerick's kind of aura, or their like unbreakable nature, like, is that fading a little bit, do you think? Or is this just like a small blip? Because that's 3 times now in the space of a year that Cork have beaten Limerick.
Would I say 3 times? I would still say twice, Aaron. You have to take it. You have to take into account it's a penalty shootout and it's a lottery. Yeah. Anything can happen. So I would still say twice, but Limerick have only beaten us once in the last 2 seasons, and then the only other time they beat us was obviously a close game at the Gaelic grounds where we had absolutely brilliant shot accuracy, but still didn't beat them. So Cork really, to an extent, have, I would say, a leveler on Limerick. They've never battered Limerick, but they seem to really, really put it up to them. That was the obvious outlier with the game 3 weeks ago, obviously, because everything kind of went wrong for Cork. I don't know what the tactics were and bring out the centre back and things like that. But Cork definitely, you have to say, they brushed up on it and they got in Limerick's face and got over the line. I think a few things for Limerick, and I mentioned at the start of the show as well, Shane O'Brien not starting, I think it was a huge mistake by John Kiley. I think he's been absolutely brilliant this season. He's been one of the formful forwards in the country, so not to start him was a bit puzzling. And a few things as well. If Cian Lynch is kind of taken out of proceedings in the game, do Limerick have that dominating factor That's another question as well, because Kieran Joyce did an absolutely brilliant job on him. And somebody actually pointed out to me on Twitter, quoting my stats actually, saying that Cian Lynch to have no shot, no score from play is absolutely incredible. You know the way you're so excited after your county wins and things like that, and you probably wouldn't have looked at the stats in detail. But I looked at them then after that comment, and I said, okay, I looked at them, the shot count. Cian Lynch had 0 shots. And I was thinking, he was really taken out of the game. And then what I thought about, Marty Morrissey, other than the little flicks and little deft touches, he didn't really say Cian Lynch's name much in the game either, which was, I would say, really, really puzzling in terms of a Limerick point of view. And I'm sure Cian, he's been one of the hurlers of the year this year. There's no doubt about it. He just had an off game in this game. But in majority, I think most of the Limerick players did, to be fair. And Nicky Quaid made an error at the end of the... I know it's tiredness and things like that, but Nicky Quaid made an error they usually wouldn't do. Cian Lynch took no shots at the game. You rarely see that. Aaron Gillane missed a few shots in the game. Aaron Gillane missed 3 shots overall. Tom Morrissey missed 4 shots overall. You don't really see that out of these players. You see what you see with these Limerick players in the last few years is perfection. You put every shot nearly over the bar. You get a 75% shot accuracy at the end of the game. And you win the game with providing moments of magic, moments of brilliance. I would say with this Limerick team this year, and it might be an unpopular opinion, I do think they've performed out of their 4 main games, because I'm not counting the Clare game. The Clare game, they played a second team. That was, training session, let's be honest. Out of the games they have played, I would say they've only shown perfection once. And that was the Cork game in the Gaelic grounds in the round robin. Against Tip, they really were pushed all the way. Against Waterford did push them to an extent. Limerick won comfortably, but I don't think Limerick were at their brilliant best that night. And then in the Munster final, obviously, missed a few shots, and it wasn't great. 52% shot accuracy plays not Limerick-like at all. And maybe to an extent, it's a positive in a way for John Coylie that he needs to kind of build momentum on these for these players. I think a good starting point will be the quarterfinal, whether that be Dublin, whether that be Kildare. Let's be honest, it probably will be Dublin, with the greatest respect. So it might be a great opportunity for John Coylie to get his players firing and things like that, and try a few things out on the pitch. Like, for example, if Tom Morrissey's missing 4 shots again, if he's missing about 5 shots, take him off early, bring on somebody like Aidan O'Connor in the half-forward line. Keep Shane O'Brien up front. I think that's the main thing John Coylie needs to do. He needs to keep Shane O'Brien starting. I know he had a bit of a blip and things like that against Cork, but Cork shackled him well that day. That was the error in many ways for Cork. They focused too much on O'Brien, and they didn't do so with Gillane a few weeks ago. But yeah, I think Limerick still have a lot to learn. Cork have a lot to learn, but Limerick haven't hit the perfection heights. They've only reached them once this year, and that was against Cork in the round robin. They probably need to reach it a lot more if they are to progress to the All-Ireland vote. But even saying that, I do think they should have enough to beat Dublin. I do think they should have enough to beat Kilkenny. I think we will see Limerick in the All-Ireland final in July. I'll be very confident in saying that. So we'll have to see in the next few weeks. But to win an All-Ireland, there's a lot to improve on for this Limerick team.
Yeah, absolutely. Peter says here, Kildare will really put it up to Dublin. Newbridge will be a cauldron, and on balance, Kildare in much better form than Dublin. Look, we'll get onto that maybe a little bit later when we speak about Kildare. As a Dublin fan, look, maybe I am quietly concerned a little bit maybe going into that Kildare game, just because we saw Dublin being on the ends of scalps like that in the past. But I do think Dublin should still have enough, in my opinion, but we'll see what happens. The Leinster final was Kilkenny 322, Galway 120. This was a mad game, really, because as you were saying earlier, for about 60 minutes, this was an absolute breeze. It was just a really weird game. It was maybe similar to the Munster final in the first half, in the sense of poor shooting. The only difference was the intensity wasn't there. The crowd wasn't really up for it. There was a lot of empty seats, and it just had a feeling of it kind of felt a bit like a league game, to be honest with you. Not really a Leinster final. And then Kilkenny, storm roaring ahead. Paddy Deacon gets that goal. You're thinking Kilkenny, right, are going to kick on from here. It's going to be a comfortable win. But then out of nowhere, Galway just turn it on. Brian Concannon gets a goal, and they start slotting loads of points over the bar. And all of a sudden, Kilkenny were on the ropes a little bit. They obviously get that goal at the end with the mistake from Dara Walsh. Look, I think they probably would have won the game anyway, to be honest. But yeah, like a bit of a mad one. We had a 10-minute Leinster final, really, like it felt.
Yeah, geez, and look at the stats of this game. Actually, Galway had a 65% shot accuracy. Looking back at this, I couldn't believe it, because Galway were very, very poor in front of the post. And there was just no urge or go about Galway in this game. Like Kilkenny were almost like they were second or third gear, and they eased. Like when TJ Reid got the goal, it was almost like this is way too easy for Kilkenny. And I feared that it would go the same way as Nolan Park as well a few weeks back. And Galway, just to be fair, Galway did show fight in the last few minutes with Brian Kilcannon getting the goal. Kevin Cooley got a few points. Colin Manning got an outrageous point at the sideline. And you were just frustrated and thinking, where was this Galway for the previous 60 minutes? Like it was mind-boggling, Galway's tactics. And myself, Seamus, and Liam discussed it on Seamus' channel last night about Galway's kind of tactics to play Conor Whelan. And it has worked this year to an extent when he has played against Dublin and against Wexford and against Offaly around the middle as kind of an outball. But when you're playing Kilkenny, you need a speedy merchant. You need a fiery forward in there to cause them problems. And if you were still going to persist with Conor Whelan around the middle of the field, why aren't you starting Anthony Burns? Why aren't you starting Declan McLaughlin? Why isn't Declan McLaughlin even in the squad? Like I would question that from Micheál Donoghue's point of view. There was a lot of kind of weird things in Galway. There was just no go about them. Like even the Brian Kilcannon goal, the bit of initiative. You were thinking, where was this for the first, I would say, 55 minutes of the game? Where was it? Because Galway just didn't have that kind of urgency. Kilkenny were at the reason. We're going to an All-Ireland semi-final now for Kilkenny, where I genuinely don't know where they are at going into a potential tie with Limerick. I genuinely don't know, because they played Galway twice, who were the second best team in Leinster this season. They've eased to victory the first game, and then the second game, they were second or third gear until they lost a bit of focus. Obviously, that's normal considering you were kind of easing or sleepwalking to a Leinster title. And then you look at the other games as well. Offaly, way too easy. Antrim, way too easy. Wexford was a training session. Obviously, nothing on the line, dead rubber. And Dublin, like again, Kilkenny were easy to victory really in the first half up until Dublin really put a few goals in to make the game interesting in the second half. So I will say you don't know where Kilkenny are at, which is not a good sign for Derek Lyng going to a potential tie with Limerick, one of the greatest sides we have seen in the last few seasons. It's not a good sign for Derek Lyng at all that this is happening. But look, in terms of the Dara Walsh mistake, he looked genuinely gutted afterwards, and he looked absolutely upset. But look, if it's any consolation to Dara Walsh, the game was lost by Galway in the first 60 minutes of the game, when they were playing both puzzling tactics in terms of not having intuition in their forward line, in not having any firepower. That's where the game was lost, not on a single mistake. And look, it's his championship debut. This was always going to happen. I think it was a nice moment, actually. Owen Murphy and even Johnny Murphy, the referee, and Micheál Donoghue's, who actually all went up to Dara Walsh afterwards and actually consoled him. I think that was a nice moment, because, look, he will have tough days now, but I'll guarantee you he will remember this in a few years' time and think, look, that's behind me now. I've now cemented myself in the Galway panel. Let's not forget, he was only in the Galway panel because Derek Fahy got suspended for a ridiculous swipe, really, at AJ Murphy in the Dublin game. And Ian Murphy got injured in the first half. So he was basically thrown into the deep end, Dara. So, look, I feel sorry for him. I really do. It's a mistake. It happens. Every player's had it. Like, for example, like, I know this is a way, but Lionel Messi for Argentina in his first ever appearance got a red card. Like, you know, these things do happen, and it's about how he bounces back from this. It will be a difficult few days for him, obviously, in remembering this incident. But look, if it's any consolation, look, the game was lost in the first 60 minutes for Galway by their poor tactics, poor sideline decisions, and Kilkenny really sleptwalked to a sixth in a row Leinster title and the 77th overall. Yeah,
Dublin is great, says here. This is one of the worst games of hurling I've seen for a while. And Peter says Galway team not properly balanced. Yeah, like even looking at it from Galway, like Cathal Mannion with 11 points. And aside from that, I mean, finishing the game with 1-9. Like aside from him, I mean, what is it with Galway? Is it like, because we've seen a lot of these performances where they do underperform, and I feel like they're a hard one to know sometimes with this Galway team. Are they underperforming? Is the talent levels just not there? What do you think?
Well, the talent levels are completely there. Like, they scored 29 points against Dublin. They wouldn't have done that for the crack. They are a serious team, Galway, and they're more serious than last year anyway. Like, to be honest, other than Cathal Mannion, there was only probably, let's be honest, 2 guys that really stepped up. Kevin Cooney scored 3 points, and Tiernan Killeen off the bench, to be fair to him, got 2. Like, I mean, there was nobody else in that Galway team that were prepared to take the game by the scruff of the neck. And even more puzzling as well, this tactic, and Conor Whelan did this for one of Kilkenny's scores. I think Billy Ryan was at the end of it. But he put the ball into the square, and Darragh Maloney was questioning, was it a shot, was it a pass? I think, but look at Conor Whelan's demeanour in the shot. I thought it was a pass into the square, a long ball, a hopeful ball into Cathal Mannion, and Hugh Lawler catches out of the sky. Absolutely brilliant performance by Hugh Lawler, by the way. But Galway kept doing it. They kept doing it, putting the ball up high to a guy that's going to claim it each and every time. And then when Galway were playing the ball low into the full forward line, they were starting to get some joy. Why weren't they doing this throughout the whole game? It's just frustration from a Galway point of view then, because if Galway did the right state of play, if they put the ball in low, if they had a bit more thought process into their forward line, if they added a bit more speed, the likes of Anthony Burns, or Declan McLaughlin, or Conor Whelan, whoever it is, or even had Cathal Mannion up full forward from the start, Galway would have got some joy. And it's frustrating that it took Micheál Donoghue about 55, 60 minutes to change the thing. I don't know. It was almost like, I think Keith Ricken, the Cork minor football manager, has said this as well. He loves seeing players think for themselves on the pitch. To me, it looked like the Galway players didn't think for themselves on the pitch. They were playing the exact same way that the managers were saying, and saying, okay, this will work eventually. It just never did. It never materialised. And they looked very, very one-dimensional, Galway. And that is a very, very big concern for the game against either Tipperary or Laois. Let's be honest, it probably will be Tipperary in the quarter-final in a few weeks' time. But if Galway were to perform as one-dimensional as they did in this game, they will get roasted by Tipperary. But the flip side of it is, if they perform as free-flowing and attacking as they did against Dublin and against Wexford, then there could be joy for Galway. But another thing as well, they need to stop having over-reliance on Cathal Mannion. Mannion's had an incredible season, and he's definitely up for an All-Star. He's been one of Galway's star players this season, and not just 11 points, but 4 from play as well. Absolutely exceptional performance, again, from the centre forward. But they need other guys to step up in and around the area. They need, like, Conor Whelan does kind of work against kind of smaller opposition and playing around that middle quarterback role. But when you have to go at teams, when you need a plan B, you need him in and around the full forward. Full stop. He is one of the most lethal forwards in the country for a reason. You have him. Why aren't you utilising him? And again, and Darragh Maloney mentioned this stat as well. I credit him on this about Galway's goal getting. Before yesterday, Galway scored 9 goals in the Leinster Championship, and 6 of them came against Antrim, the worst team in it. They scored 2 against Offaly, and Liam rightly said on Seamus' podcast last night, the goals they scored against Offaly were kind of Offaly's own undoing. Like, they were just uncharacteristic mistakes, and Galway punished them. And then the other goal, which was against Wexford, was by a sub, Conor Cooney. So they have not had goal-scoring threat this season. That is a worry from a Galway point of view. Even in the Dublin game, which would seem to excel in shooting accuracy and points taking, you never really were sure where the Galway had the chances in going for goal. Whereas you look at, I know Dublin lost the game in the end, but the flip side, Dublin, even when they were in a hole, they were going to go for goals, and they were going to take them. So there's a lot of concerns for Galway in terms of that. They need to stop being one-dimensional, stop having the same tactic over and over and over again, and try something different when things go wrong.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, and it's been like that for a good couple of years with Galway. It was like that under Henry Shefflin as well. Like, I remember watching them versus Dublin a couple of times. And it just felt like it was hitting hope and no real strategy or plan to their game. Just on Kilkenny, like, are they being written off a little bit, do you think? Because, I mean, look, they've cruised to the Leinster title. They've cruised through the majority of their games, really. They haven't, obviously, they lost to Wexford, as you said. It was a game they didn't need to win, and it was a nothing game for them, essentially. And it's something that always seems to happen anyway, that they lose to Wexford on the final game of the round robin. But like Kilkenny they've walked their way through Leinster. It's not their fault that maybe the competition isn't as strong as Munster. And they do have some phenomenal hurlers, from Owen Cody to come back, as we were saying, Adrian Mullen, who's there. You've got TJ Reid, who's still flying the flag, Mossy Keown as well, who's been outstanding, John Donnelly, Mikey Carey, I thought was very impressive as well. Like, they have some very, very good hurlers. And look, as you said, Limerick are next level. Look, and Limerick probably, you would feel, would be too strong for Kilkenny, but like, Kilkenny are still a very good side, and I don't think they should be written off completely, I think.
Maybe so, but then again, like, when they were really under pressure in the Clare game last year, and this will all come back to my mind, like, they really folded in the first half. I remember that game specifically, and I remember Anthony Daly saying at halftime, Clare were well behind Kilkenny at halftime, and Kilkenny should have had a firm grip on the game, a firmer grip at the end, obviously, as it showed out. But Anthony Daly said that David McInerney for Clare was the only guy really showing anything on the pitch, and Clare somehow turned it around and beat Kilkenny. And Clare deserve a lot of credit for coming back into the game without playing that well, but you'd have to question Kilkenny's kind of attitude in that game. And in other games as well, against certain Munster counties, and you were thinking, geez, like, where is this? Like, and I've watched Kilkenny in the league as well. I watched them in the flesh against Cork, and Parky Keefe was up in the media box for that game, and they didn't seem to have a goal threat. Kilkenny, yes, they had a goal threat in the Leinster Championship, but obviously, I know, and I get your point, it's not their fault that they're playing these Leinster sides week in, week out in the provincial championship. But when they've played against a Tipperary or Kilkenny, a Tipperary or Cork in the league, I know they played Limerick, but like, maybe Limerick were kind of thinking mind ahead towards the Munster Championship at that particular moment in time, and Kilkenny kind of pounced on it. But against Cork and against Tip in particular in the league, they seem to have no goal threat in their team. They seem to have no kind of plan B or anything like that. They kind of still play kind of the same way. They're probably reliant on their key scorers, the likes of TJ and Owen Cody in big games. I will say Mossy Keown has done well for playing the league and championship this season, and he deserves a lot of credit, but he needs to show that consistency against main county. I'm not talking about Leinster counties now, I'm talking about Munster counties, the likes of the Limericks, the likes of the Corks, the likes of the Tips. He needs to prove it in the next few weeks. There's no doubts there. Adrian Mullen came back at the team and got 4 points. That's a good return from him. Billy Ryan, to be fair, has quietly gone under the radar, scoring 3 points for play yesterday. And I think Hugh Lawler, absolutely exceptional, and he's one of the best fullbacks in the country. But the problem is, like, last year's performance against Clare was very, very poor. Their performances in the main games against the Munster sides of the league was very, very underwhelming as well. And as well as that, they haven't been tested in Leinster, and it's hard to know where they are at. I personally still think Limerick will have too much for them in the semi-final. Yes, they have some brilliant players, Kilkenny, but just in general, Ireland, I just don't rate Leinster hurling that highly, and that's just a fact. I just don't at all. But look, we'll see what happens in a few weeks. So I mean, if it is Limerick, they are going to come up against, and we shall see.
Yeah. Well, look, there is another team in the conversation still, and it is Kildare, because they beat Laois 226 to 119 to win the John McDonagh Cup for the first time. As you were mentioning earlier, an incredible story for Kildare hurling, in terms of where they've come from, to come from Christy Ring a couple of years ago all the way up to the Leinster hurling championship that they'll play in next year, to beat Laois, an absolute canter. And look, they beat them a couple of weeks ago, an absolute canter, obviously in their own backyard as well. Incredible story for Kildare hurling, and great to see them now in the Leinster Championship next year.
It's an absolutely magnificent story, and I said it before in the chat as well, that look, we've needed this sort of achievement for a long while now. We've seen Kerry come close against Antrim. We've seen not necessarily Carlow and Antrim, because they are probably still decent enough Leinster hurling championship teams. We've seen Down win the Division 2 title in the Alliance League, and then flattered to see kind of the Joe McDonagh, and you were hoping a county that haven't experienced joy in the last few years, they have been building, will finally get their day out in the summit. Kildare did so in this game, and it wasn't as if they won this game narrowly. They absolutely deserved it. They won this game by 10 points. That's their 5th game in a row that they've won as well. And when you look at the Laois game as well, that they had in Portage, they absolutely slaughtered them, and they beat Carlow away from home as well. Make no mistake about it, they've won 5 games in a row. They're on a run of form at the moment. They're beating teams by 8 or 9 points each and every game. Kildare deserved the Joe McDonagh Cup this year. It wasn't as if they've been over the line in certain games. They absolutely deserved it. And considering where they came from, they were a Christy Ring team last season. Brian Downing comes in, obviously some good pedigree with the Kilkenny Camogie team. He won 2 All-Irelands, 2 O'Duffy Cups with them as well. It's just a matter of interest. Obviously, Damien Lauder mentioned on the RT that he's kind of like Ange Postecoglou. He wins things wherever he goes. I know he didn't like that comparison. He is an Arsenal fan, after all, Brian Downing. But look, like, he's a fact though. He does do well at nearly every job he has, and he's done well at a schools level team as well. With winning trophies there, he's won underage trophies as well. Won Camogie titles with Kilkenny, obviously winning All Irelands. When Kilkenny probably wouldn't have been the top dogs in Camogie, would have been the likes of Wexford, Galway, Cork. But he changed the mentality of Kilkenny Camogie, and he obviously leaves that job. Kilkenny Camogie aren't as strong as they were. I don't think that's an unpopular opinion. He goes to Kildare. They win 2 trophies on the bounce in 2 seasons running. Like, he's a really, really good coach. And the players that Kildare have, like, what a group of talented players they do have. David Qualter, top scorer overall the Joe McDonagh Cup with 2 goals and 54 points. Absolutely exceptional tournament from him. Jack Sheridan, 2 goals in Portage the last time against Laois, and he was absolutely incredible in this game as well, scoring 1-4. Jack Travers, coming off the bench, didn't score much up until this Joe McDonagh Cup final, but he was a guy that was willing to step up for the team in this final, and he got his goal and well deserved as well. Jory Keegan again, 3 points, 19 points for play across the Joe McDonagh Cup campaign. Absolutely brilliant. James Burke as well. And just behind the scenes as well, the work that Naas GA are putting in as well. Like, I was up obviously for the Sars and Shalotneel All-Ireland Club semi-final as well, and the facilities that Kildare actually have in terms of their hurlers as well. I was up near Moorfield GA and obviously St. Conleth's Park as well. They are putting a lot into hurling at this present moment of time, and it's reaping its rewards right now. They are doing absolutely brilliant, and you have to give Kildare, their players, their management, everybody that supported Kildare hurling over the last few years, a lot of credit. And their football team is going decent as well. It's not just like the football team's falling off. It isn't entirely. Brian Flanagan's doing a decent job with the football team at this present moment in time. But their hurlers are going well as well. And this could be a new dual county coming on the radar now. Like, congratulations to everybody at Kildare. Like, it's genuinely a superb achievement by everybody involved. As for Laois, look, like, it's a tough defeat to take for the management and Tommy Fitzgerald and all them. It has been a difficult 2 games against Kildare, and they have won their last 2 games as well. They'll go into that Tipperary game as big underdogs, obviously, in Portage next week. That would be a big game for them in terms of trying to boost morale, if there was any, towards the end of the season. But look, Laois did well to get to the final, but now that's 2 losses in a row, and we've seen Kerry lose 2 finals in a row on Joe McDonagh Cup level, and look where they ended up, Christy Ring Cup. I'm not saying that Laois will end up in the same situation, but like, you have to be winning one of these finals sooner rather than later, and it's a difficult kind of defeat to take. But what I wouldn't say from a Laois point of view, Cathal Dunn in goal. I've seen it, obviously I was covering another game for the Southern Star, so I didn't watch the full game, but I've seen the highlights. Cathal Dunn for Laois in goal. Like, Enda Rowlands actually left the panel, but he was absolutely brilliant. The save he made at the start of the second half from the Kildare player, probably the save of the year. Absolutely brilliant save. And he actually did very well initially for the Jack Travers goal until he probably couldn't do any more afterwards as well. But look, he deserves a lot of credit for his display as well. It was just the amount of wides that they had in the first half in particular really, really let them down. I'm not sure was the stat actually this bad, but the RT panel, if I heard correctly, actually Laois had a shot accuracy of 22%, which, if that's correct, that's not great. It really isn't for a final. But obviously they could have been is that exaggerating a small bit there, the RT panel last night as well. But look, it's Kildare's day. What an achievement. And they go into the Dublin game now with a full lot of confidence. And just one thing as well, Aidan Leahy's tweet, I'd say everybody's seen it right now as well, about him laughing at the Kildare hurlers after they lost to Kerry. I still don't know actually how they lost to Kerry the first day out. I really don't. It was the sort of game that you said, how on earth did Kerry win that game? But he was laughing at the Kildare hurlers, still looking for a win. And it's aging like milk, hasn't it?
They've won every game since, and Kerry have been relegated. Yeah, it's just you know, if there was ever a thing as hurling gods or anything like that, you know, they're listening, and they're absolutely listening in, and yeah, no, I've seen a couple of them tweets from some of the different Kildare players, quote tweeting it and everything else, and I think it's great to see. In fairness, you know, who said the game is gone? The game is definitely back, I think. Brian says here, Kildare Dublin to be played at 4 p.m. on Saturday. This will clash with Dublin Derry, which throws in at 6:30 p.m. The same day. Yeah, no, it's absolutely scandalous, and I'll probably leave it for the show a little bit later in the week when we're kind of previewing them games and everything else. But the scheduling for some of the games this weekend is just beyond belief. Like, and even some of the games not even being on TV as well.
The fact, Aaron, that this game isn't shown on GA Plus as well. They went with the lazy option. They went with Laois Tipperary, and the reason they went with Laois Tipperary, and I've seen it in detail now, is because they already were showing Roscommon and Cork in the same ground in Portlaoise as part of the double header. So they said they may as well keep the cameras there. I'm just like, look, Roscommon and Cork is a knockout game. That's fair enough in football. But we all know what's going to happen in the Tip and Laois game. With the greatest respect to Laois, we all know what's going to happen. Tipperary are going to happen. With the Kildare Dublin game, at least, Kildare, after winning a trophy, you would think Kildare and Dublin in St. Conleth's Park in Newbridge, I definitely want to watch that if I was going to watch any game. So I'm very disappointed that they chose Laois Tipperary, in all honesty, and not to show Kildare an awfully as well. That's not being shown, as far as I know, as well, in the Tailteann Cup.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know.
Yeah, it's crazy, really. Yeah, like, and yeah, no, like, even having those games like so close together, like with Dublin Derry being on a Newry as well, like there'd be no way for fans to go to both of those games. You know, so like it's, you know, I know you will have a loyal hurling following who probably will go to Dublin Kildare, but it's going to be a lot more lesser fans there now because of that. And I know there's so many games happening. You do have so many games on this weekend. There's so many grounds being used. I know it is hard to kind of logistically fit it all together, but surely there has to be a better plan than what's being thrown up there, in my opinion. But there we are. Based on all of that, Peter says here, Dublin shouldn't underestimate Kildare. Absolutely not. And Peter says Nathan Manu clubs leading the way. Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a fair point there. So yeah, massive congratulations to Kildare. Huge win for them. Great to see it in terms of Leinster counties rising up. Do you think the Leinster Hurling Championship needs to be expanded now? Like, this has been a talk before. Like, we're seeing Kildare win Leinster, or not win Leinster, but win the Joe McDonagh. Offaly obviously won it last year. Laois regularly getting to finals. Westmeath were there a couple of years ago. Like, I genuinely do think 2 groups of 5, in my opinion, and then you have semi-finals between the top 2 teams, and then a final. It's one extra game for the counties who would be playing in Leinster. Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I know I've said it for a long time, Aaron. I think it needs to be expanded to 10 teams, the Leinster Championship. I think it needs to have like a round robin kind of thing, like in Munster, for 2 separate groups. I think 2 groups of 5. You have Kilkenny and Galway, pot 1. Pot 2 with Dublin, Wexford or whatever. Pot 3, Offaly and Antrim. Pot 4, Kildare and Laois. Pot 5, then I'm guessing probably Carlow and Westmeath. And play it off then. And then the bottom 2 sides, the 5th place sides, will go into a relegation playoff. Whoever loses that goes down back to the Joe McDonagh Cup. And then you'd have the top 2 sides in the Leinster final. The first place sides in the Leinster final playing against each other. The second place sides would have a playoff to see who gets into the All-Ireland preliminary quarterfinals after that. I think that's probably the fairest way in going about things as well. And number 1 as well, and the biggest caveat for this, it will develop counties like Carlow. It will develop counties like Kildare, obviously. It will develop counties like Laois, Antrim even, who went down. They would have been devastated to go down. And under the current format as it is at this present moment in time, there's no guarantee Kildare will stay up. As great as they've done this year, they've done absolutely brilliant with some brilliant hand. Brian Downey deserves a lot of credit in terms of getting the Joe McDonagh Cup. But you look at the Leinster Championship next season, you have Offaly that will grow in confidence under Johnny Kelly after staying up in the Leinster Championship, and the way they challenge those teams. Adam Screen will be back to full fitness next season. That'll be good signs for Offaly. Then you have the big four in Wexford, Dublin, Galway and Kilkenny. So there's no guarantee Kildare will stay up next season. As much as they'll have competitive games and great games, and it'd be great for the Kildare hurling fraternity to go to these games, going to potentially Nolan Park or welcoming Kilkenny to Newbridge, TJ Reid playing in Newbridge. It is a great story, obviously. But if they go down, that's the worry. If they go down for the Leinster Championship back to the Joe McDonagh, how are they going to find the confidence of themselves to go back up again? So I think for the best thing for all counties to develop, because it clearly is developing, these Joe McDonagh Cup counties, I think have a Leinster Championship with 10 teams, 5 groups, or 2 groups of 5 sorted.
Yeah, no, I agree as well. I think absolutely spot on. Like, I'd absolutely go for that. And like we are seeing as well, there is a lot of counties who have been relegated from the Leinster Championship in the last couple of years, and they haven't been able to come straight back up. Westmeath struggled for a while. Over the last couple of years, we saw with Carlow when they initially got promoted and then went down. We even saw with Carlow this year as well, who couldn't get back up. Laois have struggled since being relegated. It'd be interesting to see what happens with Antrim now. But there is a lot of teams who do tend to struggle, in fairness. Moving on to the weekend's Tailteann Cup preliminary round games, we had Westmeath 3-26, Laois 1-15. Very, very dominant win in the end from Westmeath. You do Loughlin there scoring 1-2. Ronan Wallace with 1-5 as well. Sam McCartan with 8 points. Dominant victory in the end for Westmeath. I thought this would have been closer, to be honest with you. I think I even predicted a Laois win going into this. I thought they'd be able to kind of cause the surprise here, but no, Westmeath, they put them to the sword here big time.
To say that your number 7 and your number 6 got 113 between them is absolutely monstrous, isn't it? It really is. And it just epitomises the big players in big games that Ronan Wallace and Sam McCartan are. Like, they are really, really good players. I've seen the flesh obviously in Super Friday Parky Keeve earlier this year as well. Ronan Wallace was a major turn from centre back. Sam McCartan is a real serious 2-point kicker, and he really is a turn at wing back. And Luke Loughlin only scored 1-2 in this game. It does prove a very good thing from Dermot McCabe's point of view that there are more players around the team that can offer scores for the team, which is a good sign of any team. Matthew Whittaker as well, a real fan of him, 1-1 from play as well. A really young player coming into the team for Westmeath. And as for McCabe, and Seamus epitomised brilliantly, he said about them losing games in Division 2, obviously drawing one the game against Roscommon, but losing the games will lose them narrowly. It's almost like they're doing leaving cert maths and they're doing all the workings correct, but they just come up with the wrong answer at the last particular moment. But it's positive signs. You're getting somewhere. And Westmeath, I think, are on a one-way ticket to the Tailteann Cup. They play Wicklow now in the quarter-final as well, which it will be a tough game at Aughrim. That will be, a monstrous kind of game for them. And they lost to Wicklow in the Leinster Championship last year, so they will not be taken lightly whatsoever. And Ocean McConville's done a good job there. But out of the sides that they could have faced, Kildare, Fermanagh being the others, I think they would be happy with that draw. So Dermot McCabe will be happy going into that quarter-final next weekend. And look, it was a good win for Westmeath. As for Laois, bit of a disappointing season, wasn't it? Not doing well in Division 3, mid-table, not really close to promotion, and then falling as they did against Louth, which I actually thought they'd probably beat Louth in the quarter-final with Samuel Roy being out and things like that. But Laois didn't do that. They didn't take their opportunity there. Losing games to Wicklow in the Tailteann Cup and then getting hammered by Westmeath. I think it's been a disappointing season for Justin Magnolia. Obviously, they have next season again to develop again. But look, disappointing season for Laois. They'll have to brush themselves down for next year.
Yeah, Peter says Laois in serious bother, and Dublin is great. Laois were very disappointing. Yeah, like I've seen, I think Colin Parkinson's tweet from Smaller Fish GA saying that was one of the worst weekends in Laois GA history. With the fact of how poorly they were beaten here, and obviously the Joe McDonagh Cup final as well. So Laois is definitely a county at the moment that does seem to be struggling. Look, they got the back-to-back Joe McDonagh Cup finals. I think they can get back there again next year in hurling. But there does seem to be a lot of issues, even at underage as well. Like Laois are a county that doesn't really ever seem to do anything. So it's definitely something that does need to be looked at, I think, over the next few years. You'd Offaly 225, New York 112, an expected win. Again, with a lot of these Tailteann Cup games, a lot more one-sided than we would have expected. Maybe I thought New York would have been able to put up a bit more of a fight, but in fairness, it was a tough game for New York. They probably would have been hoping to have drawn someone else here. To be drawn against one of the contenders for this tournament, it was always going to be tough for them.
It was, and the scoreline as well. New York 112, Dillon Highland 112, which was really an interesting stat there. But
the population of one man with 112 and the population of what? I don't know what the population of New York is.
Jeez. So there'll be a lot of counting on. But look, what a performance by Dillon. 3 pointers, I think 1 free as well. Like, he was absolutely brilliant. 1-7 for play as well. Obviously he got his goal probably as the lighter side of variety. He was fisting for a point, and then it came back to him, and it was a tapping at the end. But look, all of them count. It was a very good display from him. Jordan Hayes with 4 points, and Roy Matney off the bench with 1-2 as well. So good display for Offaly. Look, they got the job done. It could have been a banana skin for them. They got over it. They'll move on to the next game now, which is a really tasty tie against Kildare. Again, not being shown, which is absolutely scandalous, really. I'm not sure why it isn't really, but look, it is a mouth-watering game. Both sides played some very good football in the Division 3 final. Offaly have beaten Kildare twice this season. Could they make it a third time? We'll have to see in the next few weeks, but genuinely, I think Kildare and Offaly would have been probably the two favourites to win the competition. They're in Division 2 next season, and they're playing each other in the quarter-final. I don't think many people would have said that before the ball was even kicked at Tailteann. But look, they'll be happy with this win, Offaly, but they're bigger fish to fry next week.
Yeah, absolutely. The fact the game isn't being shown is absolutely crazy. In fairness, like, I mean, it's the top two teams, top two seeds, basically. When you look at it, two sides will be in Division 2. It's crazy that they haven't picked that game. But Sligo 127, Carlow 219. Sligo come through it in the end. I heard most of the damage was done in the first half from Sligo, and really Carlow were just trying to keep themselves in it after that. Couple of goals in the second half to kind of bring themselves back in it. But in the end, big win for Sligo, and a needed win as well to get them into the quarters.
Yeah, very good win for Sligo, and look, Carlo battled back into it in fairness in the second half. Goals in from cornerback by Paddy McDonald, so good for him from cornerback to get 2 goals there. But look, what a performance by some of the Sligo players. Niall Murphy with 8 points, Alan McLaughlin with 1-3, Alan Riley with 4 points, Paddy O'Connor with 4 points, and 2-pointer from midfield. So look, it was a good display from Sligo. They do have players that can hurt any defence. Pat Spillane Jr. says hello. Like, he is a really good player and has shown it for Sligo this season. And Sligo are one of the favourites for this competition. They play against Fermanagh, which is a tie that they won't fear, considering Fermanagh how unseriously they've taken this competition over the last few seasons. I know it's at Brewster Park, but it is a difficult game nonetheless. But at the same time, Sligo will definitely fancy their chances in overturning that Fermanagh team. A good win for Sligo. Again, bigger fish to fry, obviously, next week against Fermanagh, but they are still one of the favourites to go on and win this competition. They do have serious talent in the forwards, and ever since probably the end of the Alliance League campaign, they've built up a bit of form. They've only lost games, I think, to Mayo. Obviously, that's a higher opposition in Connacht, and Kildare, they could lose. They could have lost Kildare anytime, considering the confidence that Brian Flanagan has built in the Kildare team. So those are no misdemeanors at all from a Sligo point of view. So they're going well. They are going well, and they'll fancy their chances at having a crack off Fermanagh.
Yeah, and then in the last game, Wexford 523, Antrim 221. Do you know, when I seen the score, I nearly had to double check. I wasn't looking at a hurling game between Wexford and Antrim, because it's a very familiar looking scoreline from a Leinster hurling championship game. But Wexford come through a lot more dominance than I would have expected. Again, running trend of a lot of these games, like an 11-point win there. Ben Brosnan still doing the business. 1-2 from him, 2-3 from Sean Nolan. And Wexford are quietly maybe like dark horses for this competition?
Maybe so. Like Sean Nolan again, superb with 2 goals and 3 points, 2 players, according to Scorpio. Ben Brosnan with 1-2 as well. How that guy is still going hard. I remember him in the 2011 Munster final against Dublin. He was one of the main players with the bleached blonde hair, but he still is going. 37 years of age, what I heard. Like he's just absolute specimen of footballer. Mark Rossiter with 1-1 as well. Robbie Brooks also got a goal to this one for Antrim side. To be fair to them, Dominic McInerney with 1-4. Ryan McQuillan, I was impressed with him against Armagh in the Ulster Championship when it was on BBC Northern Ireland. And he didn't press a disc with 5 points in play. Interesting enough, the goalkeepers, Dar Brooks got 6 points and Michael Byrne got 7, 13 between them. Obviously that's the modern game. A lot of 2-pointed frees there for both goalkeepers there. So look, that is the modern game. Antrim would still go out with their head high, I would say, in terms of the competition this season. They have done brilliantly in getting to this stage of the Tailteann Cup, but they did do well against Armagh in the Ulster Championship. Maybe lots to build on for Andy McAdee if he is still there next season. As for Wexford, they play against Limerick in the quarter-final. That's still going to be a difficult game. I have seen Limerick in the flesh against Cork. They are a decent side with the looks of James Naughton there, Emmett Richter, Ian Corbett, and Jimmy Lee seems to be doing well with this Limerick side. And Limerick did beat Wexford in Croke Park in the Division 4 final. So that will be an evenly matched quarter-final. I would still fancy Limerick just about. Maybe it's my Munster bias kicking in, but Wexford definitely will fancy their chances again to the semi-final.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose the last thing we'll mention then before we finish up is the Tailteann Cup quarter-final draw. So it's Fermanagh versus Sligo, Wicklow versus Westmeath, Kildare versus Offaly, and Limerick versus Wexford. So interesting enough, you have a repeat of the Division 3 final and you have a repeat of the Division 4 final there. So interesting draws that have been made there. If you have to call it now, who wins the Tailteann Cup, do you think?
Jeez, so the semi-finals are an open draw, so it's hard to know at this stage. I think Sligo will beat Fermanagh. I think Westmeath will beat Wicklow. I think Limerick will beat Wexford. Kildare Offaly is a toss of a coin. It really is. I'm going to say Kildare will edge it their own. I'm going to say Kildare will edge that game and get through to the semis. So then it's between Sligo, Westmeath, Kildare, Limerick. It's a tough one, it really is. I think I'm going to go Kildare to win it. Westmeath, and if the draw goes according to plan, I think Westmeath and Kildare get to the final, and I think Kildare edges in that final.
Yeah, I agree with you as well. I think Kildare have the biggest depth in their panel. I think they've the best team. I think the draw has probably actually worked out for them as well. The fact that they get Offaly at home as well, not playing them in Croke Park. You know that way. But I have a funny feeling about Limerick as well, though. Like I think genuinely, like they're quietly just kind of going along. They've been promoted from Division 4. They beat Wexford in the Division 4 final, so they're certainly not going to fear Wexford this weekend. They beat Westmeath once already as well. So Limerick are definitely there, and they're a team that I could potentially see get to a final. But I do agree with you as well. I think Kildare will have enough, especially having Daniel Flynn back in the ranks now as well. I think is huge from a Kildare perspective. But do let us know in the comments, anyone who's watching or tuning in, do let us know your opinion on the Tailteann Cup. Who do you think is the favourites? Who do you think is going to win it? And do let us know your opinions on what we discussed in relation to the weekend's hurling games as well. Liam says, how dare you, Matthew? So not too happy about the predictions there. But cheers anyone who tuned in. And until the next one, we'll speak to you all later.